Throughout the years, many different kinds of drivers have competed in endurance races. The sport is a very welcoming place, and the allure of sharing a car with a passionate team and working together to achieve victory at some of the biggest races there are has attracted many famous people from all over the world. Drivers used to sitting in touring cars, rally cars, NASCAR stock cars or open wheelers like IndyCar and F1, they all seem to agree that endurance racing is just a lot of fun. The race organizers like it as well, as each racing celebrity always brings a healthy amount of fans that tag along. It's a great way to attract new fans to the sport. Seeing as endurance racing is booming with the rise of the hypercars, I figured I'd try to do this as well and go through some of the most noteworthy drivers who have ever competed in one or more endurance races. There's quite a lot of people to go through, so see this as a start of a new series on this channel. Some unexpected names will be covered, so make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on your personal favorite driver's endurance racing career. We begin in 2018 at the Daytona 24 Hours, where a British 18-year-old talent is about to step into the fastest car he's ever driven. I'm talking of course about Lando Norris. Up to that point, Norris had been steadily climbing the open wheel ladder and got himself a spot at McLaren as a test and simulator driver. Before embarking on what would be a very successful 2018 F2 season, he would first compete in the 56th running of the 24 Hours of Daytona, the race that traditionally marks the start of the IMSA Sports Car Championship. Norris had raced only one non-open wheeled race car at this point, the humble little Ginetta G40 Junior back in 2014. The Ligier JSP 217 he'd be driving at Daytona though was quite the upgrade, even compared to the F3 cars he was used to. The Ligier was run by United Autosport, a well-established Anglo-American racing team with a very respectable racing pedigree in GT and endurance racing. It was founded by former racing driver Richard Dean and owner of the McLaren F1 team, Zak Brown. That should easily explain how Lando Norris ended up here. It was to be United Autosport's first entry in the Daytona 24 Hours with a two-car effort, and Zak had brought with him his most cherished drivers. One car with the number 32 would be driven by the young Hugo de Sadeleer and Will Owen, and more experienced and former F1 drivers Paul Di Resta and Bruno Senna. Car number 23 would be driven by Lando Norris, Phil Hanson, who already had raced at the Le Mans 24 Hours the year before, despite being only 17 years old, and last but certainly not least, Fernando Alonso. McLaren's then current F1 driver would partner up with McLaren's future F1 driver, but that wasn't known yet at the time, as it was only September. Norris would sign with the team at the end of the year. Alonso was passionate about endurance racing and made clear he really wanted that triple crown. Whether or not Norris was signed up for the race for fun, or as a way to test the young rookie's skill next to an established F1 driver in the same car, is up for debate, but it's not hard to argue that Norris definitely wasn't gonna let this opportunity to race for Zak Brown's personal racing team go to waste. All the eyes of the media might have been at Alonso, but it takes more than one driver to win a 24-hour race. The team would race in the prototype class and be up against 9 more LMP2 spec cars from Oreca and Multimatic. LMP2 was on its second year with the new rule set, and already the Oreca 07 had proven to be the car to beat in class. Joining them would be the IMSA exclusive DPI cars. These cars have the same chassis as the LMP2 cars, but whereas Norris and the rest had to make do with a standardized naturally aspirated 4.2 litre 600 horsepower Gibson V8, DPI cars had their own manufacturer-sourced engine, which varied from a small 2-litre turbocharged 4-cylinder in the Mazda to the big naturally aspirated 5.5-litre V8 in the Cadillac. The DPIs and LMP2s were balanced out though with BOP to ensure they'd run at equal pace. After qualifying, which was done by Alonso, the car would start the race in 13th place, 2 spots ahead of the sister car. With both cars at the back of the prototype field, it wasn't the greatest start for the entire United Autosport team. But a lot can happen in 24 hours, so the morale was still good. And a lot did happen. After various problems for cars in every category and 2 hours of racing, Alonso even briefly led the race before handing over to Phil Hanson. As the positions in endurance racing always ebb and flow, Hanson would hand over the wheel to Norris with the car just outside the top 5. Not long into his first stint, it started to rain. That made Lando's debut in endurance racing even more challenging. Wet weather racing is already hard enough, but Daytona's unique layout means that drivers have to drive on and off the oval. In damp conditions, this can prove to be quite tricky, as the banking obviously dries up faster than the infield. Just as the rest of the field, he was forced onto the wet tire. He soon realized the few brave drivers who switched back to slicks early were starting to go faster and faster. Not hesitating, he asked the team to put the car on slicks when he came in for his next scheduled pit stop. This is when he really made his mark on the event, as he quickly and comfortably became the fastest car on track. Despite the Ligier not being the most competitive car, Norris hustled it around the track 1 second faster per lap than anyone else, halving the 1 minute gap from the leader into a 27 gap in just 20 laps. Norris, completely clueless as to what position he was actually in, overtook the sister car in what he thought was for P8, but he was actually lapping it. When he came back into the pits after his 4th stint and setting the timing screen alight, he handed the car back over to Hanson in first place. Lando's wet to dry weather drive was his way of showing he's got what it takes. A lot of people were surprised by the 18-year-old's performance, but not Alonso. He wasn't surprised because he expected Lando to do well. After the race, he spoke highly of Lando to the media as his preparation, teamwork and speed was very impressive. Less impressive was the car's eventual result. None of the drivers made any significant mistakes, but as is often the case in endurance racing, anything that can happen will happen. Just as many other racing teams running on Continental tires, the car suffered from a flat tire. This lost him some time, having to crawl the car back to the pits. Even more time was lost after the master brake cylinder failed with Alonso behind the wheel, the ensuing repairs setting the car back several laps. The brake issue appeared once again later in the race and the car was parked. At the end of the race, the number 23 was qualified as 36th overall, 89 laps down on the leader. The number 32 sister car did manage to finish the race in 4th place, showing that if the number 23 with Alonso, Hanson and Norris didn't hit trouble, it too would have had a good shot at a top 5 or even podium finish. Alonso caught the endurance racing bug and went on to win Le Mans with Toyota. Phil Hanson went on to win the LMP2 championship in the European Le Mans Series and World Endurance Series in 2020 and today still races for United Autosport. As for Norris, I think you know where he ended up. Lately he's made it clear that he's open for another endurance racing adventure if the opportunity ever arises. And who knows, if McLaren ever pulls the trigger on making a hypercar, United Autosport will for sure be the team to race it, and hopefully we'll see Lando Norris driving it. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like it and subscribe if you don't want to miss out on the next one.